A fuel choice that even rivals can agree on? Now that's worth the hype. Pump it up with Unleaded 88.
Shane Gillis, live on stage.
I'm a bit of a history buff, which, by the way, that is early onset Republican.
His biggest tour ever is coming to Des Moines.
You're a white dude in your 20s and 30s, and you're like, I can't stop reading about World War II. It's coming, bro.
See Shane Gillis with his unmistakable comedic style. Live at Wells Fargo Arena Saturday, May 31st. Get tickets now at iowaeventcenter.com. For more, visit ShaneMGillis.com.
Hello and welcome into an instant bigger than 12 here on a Saturday night whenever you're listening, however you're watching. We just watched one of the best college basketball games of my lifetime. I can say that for certain. I'm joined by Chris Hassel and Matt Van Winkle. We'll get to them in just a second. First, love to shout out Wealth Charter Retirement and Planning on this little bonus podcast. They know what they're doing when it comes to financial planning and tax management. Again, we're going to have a normal show on Tuesday, so you'll hear all about Wealth Charter on that night. Houston overcomes a double-digit deficit to Duke. They were down 7 with under a minute to go and come back to win this game somehow. We don't know how it happened, and that's what we're going to talk about. I'm going to bring in Chris Hassel. Hassel, you've been around a little bit longer than me. Put this into perspective. How crazy of a game was that?
I've never seen a comeback like that in a Final Four game. But at the same time, I believed in Kelvin Sampson from the start of that game until the very end. Now, I'd be lying if I said they were going to win the game, but to come back and win that game, the way they played in the first half was a shell of Houston's self. And I'm so happy for Houston and for Kelvin Sampson, because I know that Kelvin Sampson is the best coach in the country. The best. Absolute best. Nobody's better. Nobody is better. Teams have more talent. Duke had way more talent. That's why everybody picked Duke in this game. Duke has 3 lottery picks. 3 guys freshmen one and dones that'll probably be top 10 picks in the draft. But Houston is grown men who Kelvin Sampson has molded over the course of the year. They are never going to give up. They are never going to give in. And I am so happy for him and this team. And I'm so happy he shouted out the Big 12 after the game. He shouted out Brett Yormark. It's awesome. It's so cool because they don't have what Duke has. Yet they played 40 full minutes, Jake. 40 full minutes. And, some people are going to call this a Duke meltdown. Duke gave this away. This was Houston never giving up and never giving in.
I'm looking back at the timestamps in this group chat that I'm in. 10:31. I said, this says so much more about Duke and their talent level and how above Houston they are and how it's just a different sport for some teams. That's when I thought the game was over, and it was after Houston had cut it to 5-6 points, but Flag just kept coming down on the other end with a big 3, a big block. I thought the game was over. And yeah, just to your point, Houston never once quit. They never gave up. The game could have been over after that JoJo Tugler technical foul, reaching over the inbounds line. I don't know if I've ever seen that in a major college basketball game.
Not in that moment, no.
No. And yeah, I think it is fair to call part of it a Duke collapse. They couldn't inbound the ball. The over-the-back call on Cooper Flag after the 1-and-1 was questionable. But again,
that
Houston,
was a bad call. I thought that was a bad, and I was actually disappointed in that call. Not just because it was a bad call, but because I thought Houston would have a better chance of scoring if they weren't on the free throw line, but they were the team that made the plays at the end of the game. And that's what it's all about. What you talk to any coach, any of them, and they will say 40 minutes. It's not 36 minutes, it's not 39 minutes. It's the team that can do it for the full 40. And Duke was great for the first 35 minutes of that.
Yep.
Houston stayed within striking distance, and they have that culture. Those guys, some of those guys are 23, 24 years old. They've been with Sampson for 4, 5, 6 years. There's a lot to be said about that compared to a Cooper Flag, Con Knipple. Those guys, they're talented, but only been in the system for a year. Yeah, there is something to be said about the college basketball team that grows, and Houston has grown and grown and grown. And I'll never forget. I've seen Kelvin Sampson's practices. I've seen Kelvin Sampson's game day walkthroughs. We call them walkthroughs because for most teams, they are walkthroughs. The day of the game, you go, a lot of teams will just screw around. They'll shoot. Coach will be really loose. Kelvin Sampson works those guys to the bone, even in walkthrough 5 hours before a game starts. They are at 100% all the time. Never give up. And that is how a team like that wins this kind of game.
And it shows. Like it shows year in, year out, game in, game out. I'm on the record when they had that uncharacteristic November and December where they lost to San Diego State. They lost an overtime game to Alabama. I said I just didn't think they were the same team without Jamal Shed because they've run back mostly the same team. They bring in this transfer from Oklahoma who scored 9 points a game. I was on the record, that they start 4-3 on the season. And you looked at what Iowa State was doing at the time. You're like, right. It's probably not Houston's league. I think when that shifted was that win at Fog Allen Fieldhouse against Kansas. And there's so many parallels to that win to tonight. I mean, even down to the inbounds play. The way they even were able to win that KU game was, I believe it was Rylan Griffin threw an errant pass on the inbounds play. Uzan knocks down a three, sends it to double OT. Ball game, Houston wins it. Just like tonight. Inbounds plays, toughness, massive, massive shots.
I was on CBS Sports HQ today, and we had Hunter Dickinson on our set in San Antonio. And I talked to him about that game. And there's some teams are done at a certain point. Houston is never done. Houston was down, that Kansas game you referenced. Houston was down 6 points, if memory serves. 6 points with 16, 17 seconds to go at Fog Allen Fieldhouse. And Kansas was going to the free throw line for 2 shots. They won the game.
In Fog Allen Fieldhouse.
Yes. So if you can do that, you can do anything. And it's just a team that no matter what the score is, whether you're down, Houston could have been down 13 points with 30 seconds to go. And I would have full belief that they would only by 5, 6. They just don't give up. And this also goes to what the Big 12 was this season. And look, we know what Iowa State did in the tournament. We know how they fell off. But for Houston to do what they did in the Big 12, losing one game, They went through that entire slate, losing once. That's it. And it was a fluky, it was crazy. It was a fluky home game to Texas Tech. Texas Tech had players ejected. Houston had players. They lost. That was it. They won every game. All in what they did to BYU in the Big 12 championship game, when they didn't have anything to gain, Houston was going to be number 1 seed no matter what. BYU was the hottest team in the country. They were just destroying everybody. And they went in there, and Houston dominated that game. These guys are different. They're not more talented than Duke. They're not more talented than the team they're going to face in the national championship game, Florida. But they are dudes. They are 21, 22, 23. And they have been coached by Kelvin Sampson, who is the best coach in the country, bar none.
Yeah, I don't know how you can argue against that. Whether you go from the guards, really all of them had their type of moment this game. LJ Cryer didn't do much down the stretch, but he was the only reason that this game was a 12-point game at one point and not a 25-point game. Like he kept them in the game. JoJo Tugler down the stretch, massive offensive rebound, put back dunk after I believe it was Malik Wilson missed the 3 after the bad inbounds pass. It like you said, it's just a bunch of guys that know how to win. And 19-1, that is not a fluke. It's almost impossible to even say a team went 19-1 in the Big 12, wins at Arizona, at Texas Tech, at Kansas, destroyed BYU in the Big 12 tournament, beat Iowa State at home. It's unbelievable what this team's done, and everything that they've shown, from the miraculous win to Duke, the execution down the stretch against Purdue, beating Gonzaga, a team that's top 10 in KenPom. There's no reason they can't go out there and beat Florida. I think Florida will be their toughest test, not only because of the talent disparity, but I think Florida has a lot of similarities to Houston in that they can maybe not play their best basketball for 35 minutes. We saw that against Texas Tech. They were down 12. And for whatever reason, whether it's Walter Clayton or everybody else, Florida has also found a way to hit that extra gear. And that's it. Hopefully we can get a close game with 5 minutes left in the national championship on Monday, because I don't think you can argue that there's been 2 teams in college basketball that are better in the last 5 minutes of games than these 2 teams.
How cool is it too that we're going to get a matchup between Kelvin Sampson, one of the most experienced, great pedigree of a head coach, and Todd Golden, who's a 39-year-old just up and comer.
Yeah.
It's put together an incredible season with Florida. That's going to be a fun matchup on Monday.
So I'm sipping on some Steeple Ridge bourbon.
There you go.
Cheers to Kelvin Sampson.
I've got some down. I made as well.
That's
got
the good
Steeple
stuff.
Ridge
Lonely
Tawny
Oak.
Port.
I made myself a little old-fashioned, probably with about 10 minutes left in the game, not expecting to do an instant bigger than 12 podcast, because I didn't think Houston was going to win the game. So cheers
Where the
to
hell's
Steeple
Duke
Ridge.
at?
He's
Where's
hammered. Duke is not. Derek Duke and Duke University are both probably feeling it tonight.
He lives like 5 minutes away from San Antonio. Is he down on the Riverwalk?
He said yesterday that he got offered tickets to go to the All-Star game and whatever Kurt Jones is playing in. And I asked if he was going, and he said, no, I'm staying the hell away from downtown. He's at a ranch tonight. He sent me a text. I caught the second half period, had it on my period phone period. So I don't think he's typing coherently. He's been day drinking, eating brisket. Like, look at that brisket. There's a little glare, but Duke will be joining me on Tuesday. We'll have our normal bigger than 12 show reacting to the national championship game.
Duke's going to be back in God's country in a few weeks. Great state of
he's,
Iowa.
He's
Going
coming back
to the-
for a little Brooks and Dunn at
Yes,
Wells
sir.
Fargo Arena. But yeah, I don't know if I have anything else.
Well, I don't. Jake, you're younger than me, but I don't ever remember a Final Four being the final of the Final Four being this good.
No.
And maybe we should have expected that with all the one seeds. The first game went down to the wire. The second game was it. We thought the second game might be like the dud of the two, the way it was going, and it ends up being, I think, a game that no one is ever going to forget. How Houston came back. What did they go on, an 11-1 run at the end of that game to win it?
Yeah, 11-1 run. They had a 7-0 run in the span of 15 seconds. And to your point, I was actually talking with friend of the program, Blake Hornstein, on the phone this morning, and he asked me like if I'm disappointed if it's 4-1 seeds. And I said, honestly, no, considering how top heavy college basketball has been this year, 4 historically great teams all happening to be in the same year. I think it's just right that they get to duke it out for the championship. And it's lived up so far. I think the best college basketball game I've seen in my lifetime, at least in the Final Four, was the Villanova North Carolina game. But I couldn't tell you what happened in those semifinals. I think that might have been the year Villanova beat Buddy Hield in Oklahoma by like 40. But that game was incredible. I couldn't tell you what happened in that Final Four. I will remember.
You get blowouts in the semifinals if you get a great game in the championship. And I don't know what we're going to get in the title game, but this was it in my, I've only watched, I guess I'm 40. I've seen 30. I've probably seen 33 of these. I can't remember a better one than tonight.
Notre Dame made a Final Four? Is that right? Yeah. Oh, wait. I think that's the Elite Eight. Scroll down a little bit, Maddie.
Oh, hang on.
Jesus, Matt.
Is it?
Is that a women's bracket?
No.
Oh, there we are. Yeah, Villanova beat Oklahoma by...
Oh, there we go.
I can't see what that number
Sorry
is.
about that. Oh,
they beat them
Syracuse,
95-51. Yeah, so 2 just terrible games in the Final Four, and then the most memorable championship of my lifetime, at least probably since Mario Chalmers for Kansas. But it is.
We've had some great championship games, and that 2008 one that you mentioned, Mario Chalmers, that was 2008. That was the only other time we've had 4 1 seeds. But the semifinals in 2008 were terrible. They were blowouts. And 2 incredible games tonight with maybe the greatest semifinal comeback time. And I think it is for the Big 12 because I think they would have been totally forgotten if not for this kind of comeback and this kind of game. And Kelvin Sampson, the best coach in the country, with the toughest players in the country. Either. And it also says something for no. He's 69 years old. If he wins the title, he'll be the oldest. He will be the oldest national championship coach of all time if he wins. And I think he will. I think Houston is that tough. They just have dudes. And that's why I picked Houston to win this game. Kept anteing up on the live lines during this game. I'm going to be an idiot to say, a liar, I guess, to say that I thought they were going to come back and win the game, but I thought this was going to be a 1-2 possession game at the end of it, and it was a lot more than that. And I'm really happy for Kelvin Sampson in Houston, and I think the Big 12 again is proving, but look at the Big 10 hasn't won a title in 25 years, guys. 25 years.
I wasn't alive.
And the Big 12 has a chance to win another one on Monday night.
So since 2019, the Big 12, including this upcoming Monday, will have had, I mean, outside of 2020, of course, will have had teams playing in 4 of the last 6 national championships, dating back to Texas Tech losing to Virginia in 2019, Baylor won it in 21, KU in 22, and then Houston will return in 2025 to try and make it 3 different Big 12 champions in the span of 5 years. Remarkable.
Man.
And they were in the American 2 years ago. And there were a lot of people that, I mean, probably rightfully questioned how they would translate to the next level. It's just a fair question to ask in college athletics, making that jump. And all they've done is,
and I think for most teams it would have been too tough. But for Kelvin Sampson was the right coach of the right program at the right time to do that.
Well, and how good of timing is it? Because who said that Houston maybe couldn't get a Big 12 invite 8 years ago when Sampson was just getting started there, and maybe it doesn't end up the same? Or maybe Houston gets left out of the Big 12 altogether. They're stuck in the American, and Sampson jumps up and gets a Power 5 job 2 years ago. Like, it's the perfect timing for Houston of when they made that jump, when they were at the peak of their powers, and now they're in the position to solidify themselves as a top 3, top 5 basketball program in the entire country going forward. And Sampson's old, but I would imagine his son takes the reins whenever he hangs it up, and the program is in incredible shape for the future.
And if they win a title, that will it exponentially moves them forward. But I hesitate to say that his son can keep it up, because Kelvin Sampson is one of one to me. I would like to think that his son can do it. I would to think somebody on his staff can keep it going, but he is different. He's dead. I've done a lot of games over the years. I've seen a lot of practices, a lot of walkthroughs, all that stuff. I've never seen anyone as intense as Kelvin Sampson in everything that team does leading up to a game.
This just came to my mind, Chris. You've experienced this last 2 years in football. When you have a team like Michigan or Ohio State playing for the national championship, and you're an Iowa fan, what was maybe the difference between pulling for Ohio State, pulling for Michigan, pulling for the Big Ten when they were going for those titles?
I'm not a big conference guy when it comes to the Big Ten, but I think the Big 12 is different. I think the Big 12 is in a different point where Big 12 backers need to stick together, where the Big Ten is like with the SEC. The Big Ten is going to be fine no matter what. They're getting their money. They've got their TV deals. They've got everything. All of the advantages that none of the other conferences have. The Big 12, on the other hand, does not. The Big 12 needs stuff like this. The Big 12 needs champions. They need to be able to show that they are still able to compete on the level of the Big Ten and the SEC. And it's a big opportunity on Monday to show that. The SEC has been the best conference in the country in basketball all season, and it's been historically great with 14 teams in the tournament, 7 teams Sweet 16. If Houston can go in and beat Florida, and the Big 12 can end up with the national championship after the SEC was that good, I think that's really important for Brett Yormark and the Big 12 moving forward?
I completely agree. And the reason I asked was I think back to when Kansas won it all and when Baylor won it all. There's been a different vibe around it for Iowa State fans. I really haven't gauged a single Iowa State fan that is rooted against Houston in this entire tournament run. That cannot be that can't be said about Kansas a few years ago. There's so much history with hating Kansas. Even Baylor, like Scott Drew, how many times has he won in Hilton Coliseum? There's bad blood. There's no bad blood between Iowa State and Houston. Every time that they've played since they've come in the Big 12, Iowa State won on a last-second shot in Hilton. Fight to the death in Houston. Big 12 championship, 30-point blowout. Again, a fight to the death this year in Houston. I think there's as much mutual respect between Iowa State fans and in the Houston program as maybe any program that I've seen in football or basketball. I can't even think of anyone that even compares to it.
No, I can't either. Houston's new.
Yeah,
so that
helps too.
You don't have that.
There's no.
So
there's
I think
no,
it's easy for Iowa State fans to root for Houston.
Yeah, there's no Blarge against George Niang 10 years ago that you can like paint that laundry back to. So it does make sense why there's so much respect. But yeah, you made all the right points as far as how much respect the Big 12 needs to earn and kind of the chip that they have on their shoulder. And again, I do think it can be silly sometimes when it being just a conference backer because it is your rivals. Matt's showing right now, Florida opens up as
Circa. Have an early line for this game.
As a 1-point favorite on Circa Sports, Iowa over under.
Give me Houston.
142. Yeah, I was just, that was how I was going to wrap this up. Hassel was I know you'll have two guys on Monday morning, but I was going to ask what you think happens Monday night, and it sounds like you're going Cougars as well.
Florida is clearly the more talented team. They've got more size, but I mean, you're going to give me Sampson against Todd Golden, his third year at Florida. I think it's just his 50th head coach. Those grown men, again, of talent. This not as talented as Duke. Houston was a 5.5-point underdog in this game. You're going to give me 1 point. I say Houston is minus 105 on the money line. Give me Houston to win the title. When I filled out my bracket, I had, full disclosure, I had Houston against Auburn. But Houston against Florida, give me Kelvin Sampson.
I'm in full agreement. I won't have a show before then, so I will go on the record, and I'm going to stick to my bracket. I'm going to stick to my prediction before the tournament that Houston wins it all. Unfortunately, my I had a bold prediction on Twitter that not only would Houston win the national championship, but Gonzaga would be their closest game. They won by 3 tonight, which was closer than their 5-point win against Gonzaga. So I'm not going to get full credit for that bold take a couple weeks ago. But
what would you have done had I not agreed to this instant reaction bigger than 12? Would you not have done? Or would you,
I don't
would you
know.
have done it with Van Woke?
We just gotta let Brend cook.
Me and Van Woke.
Brend's been locked in on the Big 12. Let's be honest. I mean, since football season, he and Duke have been chopping.
He
it
could have
up
done it
and
himself.
Locked
Yeah.
in.
I live for this stuff. And I kind of was joking when I said instant bigger than 12 once Houston took the lead, but when I got your word and Van Winkle's word, I was all in. It was a weird night where my boss at Local 5, Raina Garcia, worked a Saturday, so I was off at 9 instead of 11 like a typical Saturday. So
Oh, nice.
I watched the game on my couch and was drinking a lovely glass of Steeple Ridge bourbon. Caleb Vasconez, I don't know who that is, in the comments, was asking if I'd finish it, so I might as well just
Yeah, down that thing.
for Kelvin Sampson, Houston Cougars, and the Big 12 conference. It may not be the best conference in America, but there's no doubt that it's the most fun conference in America.
There you go. Oh, yeah. Steeple Ridge down the gullet.
Yep.
Give us an
Steeple
Hassel.
Steeple.
Oh, yeah.
Well, thank you so much to everyone who tuned into this literal last second Bigger Than 12 here on Iowa Everywhere. This has been so much fun. Listen to two guys, Murph and Andy Overthinking, on Monday. They'll preview the national championship and then be back here for Tuesday for a normal Bigger Than 12 here on Iowa Everywhere. Maybe reacting to the Houston Cougars winning the national championship, thanks to Wealth Charter Retirement Planning and Tax and all of our great sponsors at Iowa Everywhere.